Sorry. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining in. Lovely to see all of you. So many of you already here. But because it's exactly 7:30, I'm just going to give everybody a little more time to join in so that they don't miss the start of the session. Uh, I hope people who are here, they can hear me properly and there is no echo or anything. You can just say yes in the chat. That will also get the chat going. Thanks, John. Thanks, Rajesh and Shakil for saying yes. Awesome. I'm just waiting for about 30 seconds to a minute so that I want people to join in. We'll start at 7:31. Till then, I'm just going to go ahead, share my screen. I hope you guys can see my screen also. Again, a yes in the chat would be super helpful. Yes, thanks, Krishna Priya. Thanks, Shakil again. Okay, so today's topic is super interesting. I know all of us have been dabbling with Claude Code or have started dabbling with Claude Code already, and this is like a masterclass for all the tech professionals out there who want to understand how can they lead a spec-driven development using Claude Code and take, for example, an idea of an app to a full deployment. So today's instructor will do exactly that. He's going to take an idea of an app and take you through all the what goes on between when Claude is thinking and fetching all the results of the prompt that you have given. What does it do at the back end? How does it develop what it develops? And that is what, and that's why it's going to be practical in terms of that our instructor is going to show you how a deployed app looks like from an idea to the final result. And that's why the topic for today is going to be super super interesting. But before that, I want to tell you a little about us, interview Kickstart, because when I'm going to talk about interview Kickstart, while some of you might know us already, I want to talk to people who don't know us yet. And why I want to take these 5 minutes at the beginning is because we want to showcase that this topic is not the only thing where we help you, right? And we believe that your upskilling journey should keep on going as and when things are changing in the in the ecosystem, in the hiring ecosystem, in the job ecosystem, so that you keep up leveling your skills to stay relevant, right? So it's not just about one masterclass, it's about your career, and we understand that. And how do we understand that is because we have been doing this for 12 years, right? The interview Kickstart started in Santa Clara in the US, and we became the go-to platform for AI up leveling and interview preparation for all the tech professionals out there. We are obsessed with the progress of technical professionals, and hence what we offer is not a straight-jacketed approach. It's basically customized for over 18 technical domains, right? You can see that in front of you. So our curriculum, be it the AI up leveling part or the interview preparation part, it is built to get customized for these 18 technical roles or domains, as we call it. Our secret sauce, of course, is our instructors, and you're going to get a little bit of a teaser in today's masterclass through the way Parijat teaches you. Of course, our instructors are, the network is of about 700 of them, belonging to various companies that you can see at the bottom of your screen, right from Amazon to Google to Netflix to Meta to Anthropic to OpenAI. We have all of these guys who are actually building AI systems in these biggest of the names. They take time out over the weekends because even our learners are working professionals, and they teach you all everything that you need to know as per your domain in terms of what's happening with the latest AI skills, how to learn them, what to learn in that, and get into the specifics. We have had about 27,000 of tech professionals across India and US who have joined us and seen great success with us, which you can see in terms of student compensation. We also have a network of about 200 plus hiring partners, where whenever somebody successfully completes the program and there is a job role available, we refer in our hiring partner network. Moving on, I have already spoken about this secret sauce, but you can check out some of the names that are teaching our programs, and I'll talk about our programs a little later. But to talk about my programs, I would want to understand you a little better. What is your goal for 2026? I want to know. If there is anything that's stopping you, what is that? I want to know. And then maybe I would try to, basically connect that if we can jump in and help you, we'll be happy to do that. But without much ado, let me introduce the speaker for today, Parijat Roy. He's a lead data scientist at Microsoft. He's been there for about 11 years and more now. He was a software engineer previously over there and now a lead data scientist. And if you know Parijat, if you've attended some of the other sessions by Parijat, you know there is no other better person to take this particular class. So I'm going to quickly hand it over to him. But while I'm doing that, Parijat, firstly, welcome. Thanks for joining in. I am going to uh, launch the poll so that I get to know you guys a little better.
Hey Niyati, hi. Very good evening. Very good evening to all of you. I'm really sorry today. I'm unable to switch on the camera. There is some issue with my Zoom. Okay.
All right.
It is saying fail to start camera, and I don't have an alternate option today. So I'll
Sure, no
just go
worries.
about. Yeah, I think this is a last minute glitch.
Okay,
But
no
yeah, I
worries.
think once you start the poll, then I'll share my screen and start talking about things.
Awesome. As long as you're able to share your screen, I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah. Everything
that
else is
that would
fine.
be awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Thanks. Thanks.
So let me just start the screen sharing in the meantime. I hope the screen is visible, right?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Awesome. Okay. So let me just make it a bit bigger. Yeah. So why we have gathered today, right? So the aim of today's discussion is to be able to build something meaningful in 1 hour using Claude and without any kind of boilerplate code, without any kind of like copy pasting code, context switching, or anything like that, right? Just you and the AI agent talking to each other and building things up, right? So that is the agenda for today. And as Niyati mentioned, so yeah, I am Parijat. I currently work as a lead scientist at Microsoft. And as in any other company, like we have also started adopting a lot of AI tools into our day-to-day development, builds, processes, code reviews, and so on. Right. So that is what we are doing. And the aim is, what if you could go from a product idea to a deployed production-ready app in under 60 minutes, right? So that is what the aim is for today. And that's where we learn about spec-driven development, where we see how we build a spec, how we write a technical document, or also a PRD, and then we will go into like, okay, how do you build that, like build the application as per the spec? How do you validate, right? How do you test? How do you write UATs, and so on? Okay, so that is the aim. And just to give you an idea about what we want to talk about, so this is kind of the agenda for today. So I'll talk a bit about like Claude Code, right? How do you write the spec? How do you scaffold the project from the spec itself, right? What are the core features you build? And then obviously, how do you iterate, right? How do you fix bugs, and so on? Okay. So that is the major aim for today's discussion. In the meantime, I'll also keep a track on the chat. If there are any questions, if you put in the chat on the Q&A, I'll try to answer those. Right. So feel free to put your questions there. Right. It will be good if you can put in the Q&A so that everything is in one place. Right. So yeah, let's go into it. So what we want to do, right? So basically, if you think of the software development life cycle, right? So the software development life cycle, essentially, we generally talk about like 5 important stages, right? We call that the like say a cyclic model kind of thing. So where we look at requirements, we design stuff, right? So the product managers will work with customers, get the requirements in one place, design systems, right? So architectures will design come up with a whole level plan, right? then somebody implements it, right? The software engineers, the senior engineers, they will do the implementation part. Then the testing team will test, or the QA team will test, or the devs will only test, right? Based on the requirements. And finally, you have the build team which will deploy, right? So generally, we have a long cycle. Like now, you can see each team has a dependency from the other team, right? It's kind of a linear thing where the engineer will say that, oh, the spec is not available, I cannot work on it, kind of thing, right? Or the testing team will say, oh, the first set of build is not available yet, I cannot test anything, kind of things, right? And so on. And typically, if you think about it, requirements and design are very, very fuzzy steps, which means they generally take a good amount of time, right, to think about, to think through and build. And that's where you I'll say AI comes as a bridge, right? Where like it becomes like, okay, if you actually want to build something from scratch, how would you able to do, like as an engineer, right? Or as an engineering manager, or as a product manager even, right? How can you build something quickly and prototype and show it to others, right? So that is super important, right? So that's what we learned today in terms of spec driven development, where your thought matters, right? What you think, how you, so your thought matters more than your implementation. Okay, so how you think, how do you talk about it, right? How do you brainstorm with AI, and so on. So that matters more. Okay, so these are kind of the pain points that currently are there, and that is being like improved by AI, right? So software engineers, if you think of it, like a lot of time goes on the setup, right? A lot of time goes on boilerplate. There is a lot of context switching between tools, right? Translating the vague specs into working code, and so on. Okay, and right? So these kinds of things are there. Similarly, for product managers, it's like weeks between spec and working prototype. Very hard to validate ideas, right? Without the engineering capacity. uh, Specs and implementation might drift apart, right? So you give something, the engineering team builds something else, right? So no standardization there, and so on. And then for TPMs, the problem is essentially there is a lot of guesstimation happening, right? Uh, you don't know how much engineering bandwidth is available, so cross-team dependencies are there, which will slow down things, and so on. And for engineering managers, obviously, like they get work for 10 people when there are only, say, 6 people on the team, right? So they have to commit with tighter deadlines. So how do you do it? And how do you prototype before committing resources? So if you have a working prototype at hand, it's easier to commit resources based on the complexity of the task that might be there, right? So that is the initial aim, that is the aim. Okay. So that is what we try to do. And so this becomes kind of the AI augmented software development lifecycle, in terms of like it's like now it's like a kind of a mixed version of everything together, where you capture concise like needs, scope, everything into a requirement doc. You can build rapid architecture, UI wireframes, etc. with AI itself, implement with AI agents, and then deploy using, say, Vercel. Or if you are using, say, AWS or Azure, right, it's very easy to connect and deploy with AI, right? So that is the aim of the like that is the aim of today's discussion also, right? So these stages still exist, right? You saw the 5 stages that we saw initially. The fifth one was testing. The stages still exist, but it is now more fluid, right? It's more like each stage merged into the next one rather than 5 distinct buckets, right? And that's what we'll see also today, right? As to how do you work with, right? So this is kind of a this doesn't make sense anymore, because all the AI tools are now more or less agentic, right? So we're not going into it, but yeah, mainly wanted to talk about the vibe coding tracker, right? So we talk about vibe coding a lot, and we say that, oh, a lot of things can be done with vibe coding, but there are like practical problems with it, right? So the practical problems are essentially, so one a practical problem is that uh, when we vibe code, our ideas are not necessarily like the final idea, right? So we often do a lot of iterative to and fro, right? Or we often so basically there is no structure to what we are asking, right? We are not thinking about, oh, if I say it like this, will the AI agent give me better answers than if I say it like that, right? And so on. So we are like prompting an LM with a vague idea without any structure, right? So it generally falls apart when you are working with large scale databases, when you are working with large scale code, right? And essentially it works well for demos or like for some cases, but in many cases, like say after you do say 50 odd chats or 100 odd chats, it slowly breaks down. Okay, so that is the problem with vibe coding. And that's where spec-driven development comes into play, where you start with a structured spec, you feed the spec to an agentic tool, right? AI builds from the spec and not any ad hoc prompts, right? You iterate against the spec and then you modify and go on top of it, right? So this kind of a thing becomes more reproducible, right? So any AI agent can use your spec to build up the system, right? Obviously, their design thoughts will be different, their implementation schemes will be different, but that is something that we are okay to trade off, right? So that is what, so spec driven development is much more valuable than just vibe coding, just iteratively asking AI to do small things, right? So that is the essential aim. And what do we want to do today is we want to write a product spec, right? We want to discuss about a product spec, and then we want to give it to Claude. We'll use Claude itself to write the product spec, and then we will give Claude Code to implement against the spec, and then we'll see a working application, right? Then we'll see though some things don't work well. How do you modify it? How do you fix bugs and so on, right? So that's what we want to look at today. Make sense? Right. So in terms of if you think about it, like say what it means for you, right? So in whichever bucket you come into, if you are a software engineer, obviously the straightforward benefit is that you write less boilerplate code, your setup time is minimal, right? You focus on more on architecture, and your value shifts to making the right technical choices rather than say worrying about UI or worrying about say basic things like say auth or like authentication, or worrying about like say individual like say what happens when a button click is done and so on, right? The basic UI behavior, right? So that goes down. If you're a product manager, you think of a product, but then what are you thinking of all the angles or not, right? Can you validate your idea by building a small web page or a small website or a small feature on top of your own app and actually see that whether that is making sense or not, right? Then you can give it to engineering and say that, "Oh, I need exactly this, but these are the functionalities is what I'm looking at," right? So that they can worry about the scale and the architecture aspects, right? So nobody is telling that, okay, any of these four roles are becoming irrelevant, but it is more about bringing velocity to these roles and reducing dependency on other roles for doing independent work, right? So that is what we are talking about, right? So engineering managers, they're thinking that, okay, with even with my 6-member team, I can do a 10-member work, right? I can prototype first. Senior engineers can focus on actual senior work, like say complex problems, like say threading, uh, right, MFA, federation, and so on. And then obviously the simpler things can be done by agents and so on, right? So that is the thing. And for TPMs, it becomes like predictable budget, velocity, scope to effort mapping is clearer, right? The moment you see a POC, it is easier for you to map effort, right? So that is the main thing. So by now you must have heard about like Claude Code, right? So Claude Code is one of the agentic AI systems, agentic coding systems. There are many others, obviously, and very good ones at that. So Codex is one. You have GitHub, you have GHC, right? GitHub Copilot. You have like different others also, right? In this space, even Gemini add-ons, plugins, all are pretty good, right? We are just talking about one, and you can use any other interchangeably. Okay, Cloud Code is by far like the models are super good, but even GPT 5.6 and these models, even the Microsoft ones, MAI and all that we are using, they are also pretty good. Okay, so if I just show you the how the Claude terminal looks like. So even before you go into Claude, like Claude Code, right? So you essentially have to understand that so this is the Claude page, right? And I have, as you can see, a pro subscription. Okay, so essentially Claude Code is a paid subscription. Okay, it's a $17 monthly bill kind of thing, right? Uh, it is like majorly used for like if you are going for coding parts, right? If you're just going for like say normal chatting or say like basically using it as a chatbot, then you don't need any paid version, right? If you want to use like the code editor alongside, like if you want to use Claude along with the coding parts, then you get the details around it, right? So that is about Claude Code, and I think yeah, okay. Uh, I think there is a comment. The screen is not visible. Is it for everyone? Uh, is the
No, no, we
screen
can see
visible?
your screen.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, but we can see the slide right now. If you have opened
No,
the
it was
font,
there.
this one we saw, correct?
Okay, okay, okay. Cool, cool. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, so that is the only catch about using Claude Code. And when you think of using Claude Code, like when you look at the experience, you can always directly use it with Visual Studio Code, right? So by that I mean that you can go here in so VS Code is open source. You can always download it and install it. You don't need a login to use it. You can go to extensions and you can look for the Claude Code for VS Code extension by Anthropic. You can see here 23, 24 million almost downloads, and you can use it directly, right? Okay, so this is what Cloud Code, this is what Cloud Code for VS Code looks like, right? And yeah, so once you install it, right, so you can install here. Because mine is already installed, it is showing the uninstall button, but otherwise you can install it and take it forward. Yeah, so that is one thing. And yeah, so once you have that subscription, right, in the web page that I showed, so once you install Cloud Code, it will ask you for a login. So once you log in, right, with that same ID, so once you log in, here it opens the browser, you log into Claude, right? It sees that you have a subscription. It basically calls a webhook back, it gives a call back to the VS Code that yes, this is a valid Claude subscription and you can work on it, right? So that is the benefit of using Claude Code. And yeah, so that is the only thing. Okay, and let me just close a lot of things here. Yeah, right, so that is it. And when you look at how it sits, so if you see, if you have different files, right, if I have different files here, then you can see there is a this Anthropic extension that comes in, and you can see the Claude Code here, right? You can see Claude Code here and you can use it, right? So the first thing that we'll try to do is we'll try to build a spec, right? We want to do spec-driven development as our point of discussion today, and we want to discuss spec-driven development today. Okay. So even before going into that, just a summary slide about Cloud Code is that it's like it creates, edits files. It will also run commands, UATs, right, for you. Any kind of Git operations if you have, right? Any kind of Git operations, like say you want to push some code change, if you want to raise a PR and so on, you can always do that with Claude. Okay. You can manage, install any kind of dependencies that you want to, and so on, right? So those things become very straightforward and easy with Claude, right? And it is kind of you can think of it, it is uh, uh, like a junior engineer whom you tell, okay, this needs to be done. You give full clarity that, okay, these are the files need to be changed, or this is the functionality, it lies here, but it needs this minor fix and so on, and you can get it done, right? So the other thing is that the problem with that is that like Cloud Code also like tracks like the whole file structure, right? So you can often also hit token boundaries, right, as to like, okay, how much based on how much tokens you have paid and so on. So it is also important to monitor your spend and such, right? So you can also see your spend here, right? You can see your spend like based on the plan and so on. You can say that, okay, I want to plan something, or here are a lot of say commands that are there, right? So you can use those. You can maybe use the cheaper models, right? So cheaper models mean say Haiku, Sonnet. Those are like cheaper models that you can use for say simple tasks. And you can do more complex things. When you do more complex things, you can say switch on thinking and use like you can switch models to more complex ones, right? So that is what you can try to do. right? Similarly for memory permissions, right? How much memory you want to allow it to look at, right? And so on. Based on that, you can based on, like, you can use these commands also accordingly, right? So these are the different commands that are there, and you can use these to go deeper into, okay, what is happening, right? Do I want to, like, say monitor something, right? You can look at usage credits and so on. If you want to look at how much credits I have left, how much I have used, and so on, right? So that you don't uh so that I don't like overflow the things, right? Overflow my tokens. Okay. So I think there are some questions in chat, like there are some questions about questions. So for the questions, yeah, you can put in the Q&A. I'll take a look from time to time and come back. Okay. So yeah, so I think Akash has asked a valid question in Q&A, like how is it different from Copilot with VS Code? It is very similar. So you can see here I have GitHub Copilot also, right? So this is the GitHub Copilot thingy. With GitHub Copilot, you have more configurations, right? You can choose all of these, right? And you can also choose the Claude models. You can choose the Microsoft models, right? You can choose a host of other models too, right? So I'll say GitHub Copilot is much better at using cost. It gives you an idea about the cost and token spend and everything, right? How much cache it stores and so on. So it is easier, right? And Anisha had asked about how to add Claude in VS Code. So in the extensions, Anisha, as I had shown, in the extensions, you can install Claude versus Claude Code for VS Code extension, and it will work provided you have a valid license, right? Yeah, Nageshwari has asked about the boilerplate code that I have. This is not a boilerplate code, and I'll talk about it, Nageshwari, as we move forward. Let me come to that. Okay, we have not started looking at the code yet, so we'll come to that, right? So as we move forward, so now let's look at some of the specs, right? So for now, again, Claude.md is also not a lot required anymore, but it's good to have. Spec file super important because we'll build the whole spec accordingly, right? So let's try to build a spec, right? Let's try to build a spec. So let me open a new version, right? New window. I'll just create a new folder. Let's give today's date. Okay. As you can see, it's an empty folder, right? There is nothing here. So let's try to create a spec. Okay. So for the spec, what we'll do is we'll define some things. Okay. So we'll say that okay, I want to create a spec for, say a travel application, right? As you can see, like we'll try to build something called, say, Wander Together. Okay. Wander Together is like a travel application that we will try to build. It's kind of a social media for travel that we'll try to build. Okay. So that social media for travel will essentially give you an idea about, like, say, it will basically tell you about, uh, that say where people have visited before, if you want to make a plan to visit, right? If you need buddies to go there, and so on, right? So it's kind of a social media for travel is what we are building, right? So let's try to build it up, right? So for that, let's try to write the spec first. Okay. So what I'll say is create a detailed spec and PRD for the following use case. I hope you can still see my screen. And let's not use GitHub Copilot for this one. Let's use Claude Code itself, right? I might hit my limits. Let's see. Right? Because I generally use GitHub Copilot only. This is just a test, like a small preview account. And let's add something. So users can plan bookings, trips. Okay, we can write for the following use case of a social media website for travel. Okay, for planning travel or vacations. Uh, let's name it, call the website Wander Together. Number two, let's say users can post their travel stories, right? Uh, Meet fellow travelers or plan trips together, right? You can also give another use case, say users can uh, look at stay and flight options, stay and other related booking options, local tour operators, and say ratings of past trips, right? Something like this. Okay, it's kind of a social media for travel, right? So you can use any kind of model for this spec, right? You can also use GitHub Copilot for this, right? It's not necessarily that you have to use this thing, but yeah, like Claude Code, but you can use anything. I am using Claude Code, just showing you, right, how it works. So let's say, and we can say that create a detailed spec. Uh, yeah, I think this is good. You can say in docx format also we can write, right? So that it's easily readable, right? Often what happens, it creates in text format, right? VS Code understand text format, but we want docx so that we can open in Word as a Word doc also, right? So let's run it. Let's try to run it. So it will try to create. So you can see here it is working now, right? So it is saying I'll create a comprehensive PRD and detailed specification for Wonder Together. Since you have requested a docx format, I'll create a professional Word document with proper formatting. Uh, what else? Yeah, let me start by creating the detailed specification document, right? So it is now thinking. While it is thinking, you can also queue other messages, right? You can see here, you can also queue other messages here, right? If you have anything else. And I think this once we build the spec, then we will see how we scaffold the whole website based on this spec, right? So that is our aim. Okay. As Nageshwari had asked the question that, oh, we have already built-in thing, so you can see this folder is completely empty, right? So we don't have anything right now in this folder. So we'll try to scaffold it. We'll try to build it up, bring it to life from the spec itself. Okay. So because it is building a detailed spec, and I mentioned like extra instructions, like say you use docx format and so on, it takes a bit more time, right? But you can see it has like saved the file here, right? Uh, it has saved the MD file. Now it is saying I'll create a docx format file so that you can easily use it. Yeah, Siddhartha has a valid question as to is there any specific guidelines to follow for spec building? Ideally, say guidelines. So spec at the end of the day is kind of a brainstorming thing, right? So if you are a software engineer or an engineering manager, you can just give the use case and then get a spec. If you are a product manager, you would need more brainstorming. So you can actually brainstorm with a say a free AI tool, right? Say like Claude or say uh, ChatGPT, right? Uh, to at least think of all the ideas that you want to add, right? And then once you have all the ideas, then you can give the bullets, right? I am giving those bullets because based on my requirements. But if you are actually building a product, if you you might want to think of like how do you like go about it kind of thing, right? It doesn't have to be like my idea and your idea of spec doesn't have to be exactly same, right? Okay. So, okay, there is a question in chat around what is a PRD. So PRD is a product requirements document, right? So it's kind of a core guide that defines what a software product or a website should do, who is it for, right? Why is it needed, and so on. Okay. So it kind of acts as a bridge between the business goals and the technical team. Okay. I think for spec generation, I think nowadays, like unless you are doing very complex things, I think GitHub Copilot. Claude Code, even like say Codex, like works very similarly. Okay, they don't have like hugely different use cases, to be honest, unless you are doing something very, very specific. Okay, so if I say yes, I want to proceed with the artifact, let it create. So you can use whichever is cheaper is my suggestion, will be my suggestion there. Okay. Yeah, you can also use cursor and so on. That is perfectly fine. Right, so it has built the basic thing, right? It is telling me, do you want to open this artifact? Let's open it. Right, once I open it, this HTML opens on my local. Right, so this is the spec that it has built. Okay, so you can see, I think I'll zoom it in a bit for you. I hope this is clearly visible, the font, right? So this is a product specification document for Wander Together, right? You can see it is beautifully designed, right? It will open in Word, etc. The contents are properly given, right? Vision and mission is properly given, right? What I want to do, who are my target users, right? Problem statement. And then it's an editable thing, right? You can go about and change it. You can open it in Word doc and change it, right? So what are these core user journeys, right? What are the core user journeys, right? You can see here, discover, book, review accommodations, experiences, plan trips, collaboratively, okay? Feature set, what are the features? Social feed, travel stories, traveler matching, collaborative trip planning, right? Accommodation discovery and booking, local tours, experience discovery, destination guides and information, right? Then comes the engineering side of things. What are the design principles? Right? These are more of the UX things: authenticity, simplicity, inclusivity, right? Trust and safety, real-time collaboration, visual storytelling, and so on, right? Then the user flows, right? First day experience, discovering travelers, right? What are the user journeys, right? Then the revenue streams, right? So you also think of it, it's not about just building the website, but you are trying to build a business, right? So how will you get money from it, right? Then comes then what are the alternatives that are there? So it is doing a complete strategy for you, right? What Airbnb does, what Instagram does, what Couchsurfing does, right? It is giving a complete distinguishing, right? As to tell, okay, this is your value strategy and this is how you should pitch to investors, right? So what are the strategic advantages, right? Then the launch and growth plans, development timelines, right? And then you have the spec, the actual spec, the critical risks, right? Success milestones and so on. Okay, so you have all these details, right? You have all these details, and now using this you can actually go about and build the application, right? So I did not use any separate skill, right? As you saw, I think Mayur has asked the question around skills. I did not use any separate skill. I just used Claude's default skills, right? So I used, as you saw here, I just told Claude to create a spec and PRD. So it has its own agentic skills and we are using that itself, right? We are not using anything else. Okay. Uh, yeah, so we now have everything. So we'll now say scaffold the application, right? So we'll say build the I can also say if I want to change anything, I can always change anything, right? If I don't want to change anything, I can say that create a Claude MD file. So Claude MD file is kind of a home for all things Claude. Okay, so any changes that we make based on Claude, Claude.md basically is a repo of all those learnings, all those changes, and so on, right? So that is what Claude.md file is. So I'm saying create a Claude.md file in this directory, and based on the above spec, right? And then build the um, uh, build the website, then build the website, right? So something like this. Okay, you can give even more detailed things. You can say that, oh, I want authentication, I want Google based sign in, right? I want multi-factor authentication, I want, say, user verification, because this is something I'm booking travel with, right? Somebody, so I need verification of that user, right? And so on. Okay, so so all those things you can add. I'm, in the interest of time, I'm not adding those, right? Obviously the more things you add, the faster will be your token spend. That is also there. but more or less you can see, we'll be able to see that we'll have a good amount of like you will be able to use like properly. Okay. uh, the token spend is more or less sustainable is what I wanted to tell, right? So now it will just create the Claude MD. It is creating the Claude MD file. So you will soon see here files getting populated. Okay. So you can see here this Claude MD file gets populated. It is asking to allow to write, right? For any complex things or for any high security thing, it will ask. So if you say yes, then it will write, it will create this file. You can see this file got created, right? You can open it and you can go through it, right? So what is the product overview, project overview? What are the core product pillars, right? What all it needs to build? What is the design system, right? What are the key screens that you have to build, right? What are the key pages that you have to build, right? For that, now I have told it to also implement, right? So it is installing Next.js, right? Modern Next.js setup. It wants to build it in Next.js, TypeScript, Tailwind, CSS, and so on to make it beautiful, right? uh, so it is selling, can I add these? You can say yes, right? It will see if something is unavailable, it will try to download it and use it, right? Because most things are open source. Okay. So this is the Claude MD file that is there, right? It is saying that we want to add code documentation, user documentation, right? Security, privacy, team structure, and so on, right? So we want to add all these things, and that's what it is trying to build now. So you will see now folders will get created, right? So it is checking all the directory contents. You see the first file that got created, it is saying package.json, right? So the first file that got created is the package.json with the basic packages, the requirements, and so on, right? Next config, right? So all the config files are getting created now. So as a software engineer, the earlier we used to write boilerplate codes, right? Or we used to download boilerplates. We don't need to do that anymore. Okay. Um, okay. Sharavir has asked, like, will you be able to create and deploy in 3 hour session, which is something not possible, but can use PostgreSDB for teaching session? So yeah, PostgreSDB, I'm not using any local data. I'm not using any database for now because I don't have anything installed, right? But you can easily add a database. Like I'll show if you had, say, a database kind of thing, right? Say in Azure or AWS, you can always log in with your AWS credentials as your credentials right here, and you can say that okay, this is the database where you should put user information and so on, and it will happily help put it for you. Okay. So the files are getting created, as you can see, one by one. Yeah, editing the features, Sheila has asked as to how do we edit the features. You can always edit the features in the Claude MD file, Sheila, if you want to, right? Or you can open the spec file and you can edit the features, right? So the spec file also you can use and edit the features. I'm having to mark yes at everything. I'll just allow all edits kind of thing. So editing the spec is also straightforward because the spec is just an HTML, just a like a text file, okay, just a docx file. So you can always use it. So this is the folder that we have. These are the files that are getting generated, right? And the spec that got generated is somewhere here in my local, right? This is somewhere here, but I'll show you another spec so that you can also open and see, right? So I'll have a folder spec file. So you can always change the spec file, put it in the directory, say that update my Claude MD and so on, right? So this is a normal spec file, normal docx file, okay? And you can change and update, right? And this is all built by AI, okay? Right? Going back to today's, see, a lot of these files are getting created. As you can see, the explore page is now built, the TSX file, the front end, right? You can see a lot of code has been written already, okay? A lot of dependency issues still, right? Because the CSS files, some issues might be there. It will fix it as we move forward, right? Yeah, code flow, architecture, all these things will be there in skills. We are not defining any skills separately, right? We are just relying on basic Claude code to work on. Okay. So for those who just joined in, yeah, just to give a brief summary while Claude does the work. So what we tried to do is we, first of all, we did not use any other agent apart from Claude. Okay, we did not use any skills or anything high tech. We just took Claude Code, right? I just helped with the setup, and then I just gave a 3-line thingy like this, something like this, to say that create a detailed spec, as you can see on the right hand side, create a detailed spec in docx format. Uh, and PRD for the following use case of a social media website for planning travel or vacations. Call the website, say Wander Together. Users can post their travel stories, meet fellow travelers, or plan trips. Users can look at stay, other related booking options. Basically, a social media for travel. Okay, this is the only prompt I gave. Okay, based on that, it created the spec for me. If I want to update anything in the spec, I'll update that, right? And then after that, what I said is now you start building up the system, right? So the next spec I gave is something like this. So create a Claude MD file in this directory based on the above spec and then build the website, right? So it is now building the website. Okay. So you can see here, it is building the website, right? And it is just adding the things. So the bookings page is built, the community page is built, the explore page is built, the trips page is built, right? And so on. Right. Yeah, I think there are two questions I think which are very similar, Tejasri and Nageshwari, around how do you ensure the coding standards are good, security standards are good. I'll talk about it. I'll come to it. Let's first build the basic version of the web page. Right. I just wanted to show that deploying an idea and building a POC is very easy and deployable. Right. So that was my main aim. I'll talk about like good practices, architecture, and so on soon. Yeah, Claude MD ensures that the technology considerations and so on are taken care of. So you don't have to worry about it. You can see a small uh, localhost thingy is being built, right? So the found basic things are already built, right? So I'll now just say npm install and npm run dev. Okay. So I'll just open my terminal, right? I'll just say npm install. It is already written for me, right? You can see here npm install and npm run dev. I'm just trying to do that. Okay. So we are just trying to run it. There's some issue with my terminal. It's still running. Right. So once you have it, ideally, once it runs, we should be able to see a version of it. Currently, it's not ready, obviously. Once npm install runs, you could have also, okay, for Claude, you can also write terminal commands here, right? And it will figure out what you are asking and it will do it for you. Okay. But the thing is, those commands also, it will also run it in the terminal, right? And therefore, if you write it like that, it is not like good design, as like not good usage of tokens, right? So wherever you can, you should, it is good to use write code yourself, right? The other thing is about programming languages, which is a very valid question, right? So if you remember, like when we wrote the spec or when we told it write the code, right? We did not give it any specific programming language, right? If you are more inclined towards or more familiar towards any programming language, you should tell that, right? For me, it was the main idea was to just build a website, right? Uh, so that's where I am like I gave, okay, this is what I want to do kind of thing, and you just do it. I don't care about what web page you want to build, right? Okay. The other thing is, yeah, like if I was doing it like say in my front end days, I would maybe use say React and maybe a Node.js backend kind of thing. It just shows Next.js for me. I'm fine with that, right? I can give specific things though that okay, I have a PostgreSQL DB, normalize my tables accordingly, and so on, right? So npm install worked. Vulnerabilities are fine. So let's so it will run its own magic, and it does, right? So it is starting this port for us, which is 301. Okay. And then we can tell things like, oh, this is not working, this is something wrong, right? You can tell Claude to fix those. It's not that you have to like go with whatever it is uh, insinuating or giving, right? Yeah, so Yogesh has a valid question around third-party custom integrations. Yes, Yogesh. So if you have something third-party custom integration, like say an example can be Google sign-in, right? So you can tell that, okay, build the plugin for me, keep the API key in config, something like that, right? Or pick the API config from this key vault or from this secure store, and it will do it for you, right? You just give the connection string and so on, and it will work. Okay. So that is what you will try to do. Right. Sorry. It is still compiling. It is still not done yet. Okay. I have not switched between models. I'm using just basic Claude Code, right? Whichever is the default, I'm just using that, Sheila. So I've not switched between them. But yeah, I can potentially, I can, depending on my need, right? So it is saying that, oh, this error occurred during the build process, right? It can be fixed. So I'll tell it to fix it, right? Something like that. So I'll say fix that error. Right? It will figure it out. Generally, it figures it out. If you want to give it, right, feel free to give it. Okay. Give the details and it'll figure out, right? Even if you don't give the details, that's fine. It figured out, see, there was a plugin miss somewhere, right? And see now your web page is now available, okay, in localhost. I'll just open it in the browser, okay? This is our browser. I'll just open it in our browser. See, this is a web page that got created in how much time? 20 minutes, right? And you will see everything here, okay? When I click on start exploring, obviously a lot of things are yet to be built, right? But you can see here, more or less, we have a good website, right? More or less good, decent UI, okay? You have the explore page, okay? These are separate pages, right? You have the explore page, some featured destinations, right? Uh, Obviously the view destination and those things are not yet built and you can build them. The bookings page, right? Bookings page, right? There, upcoming bookings there, right? Saved accommodations, right? Everything here. Community page, right? What other people are saying. This was our main thing, right? We wanted to build a social media for travel. What people are saying, right? Uh, UI more or less nicely built, right? You can see obviously a lot of things are not working, and that's where that iteration is needed, right? But yeah, you can build it pretty fast, right? This is, as you saw, very fast, right? Obviously, you can see our sign in not working, get started not working. You can add those things and get it working, right? So let's try to add maybe one thing, okay? So let's say we want to add. Think we don't have anything here, right? These are not clickable only. Let's try to add maybe say maybe a very basic thing. Okay, for say product managers, this is enough for going to your like say engineering manager and say that, oh, this is what I want to do, or telling your leadership, oh, this is what I want to do, and so on, right? Backend, Jayant has mentioned that front end is successful, but backend is the main task that needs to be handled. So backend, yeah. So I don't have a cloud infra setup, right? But so if you had that, you could. It is as easy. Okay, backend is as easy. So you just need to have say Azure or AWS login. You can connect to your cloud extension here. So AWS, Azure both have their connectors, right? So you have the AWS toolkit from Amazon, right? You have the Azure toolkit from Microsoft, right? Both as plugins for VS Code. You can just log in, okay, with your credentials, and then you can choose the database and say that this is the database that I want to use, right? This is the say the message queue that I want to use for scale. This is the say load balancer or API gateway I want to use for your incoming requests, and so on. So once you say provision those resources and say that these are the things I want to use, and on the AWS portal you provision them, you handle say scale out, and then those things, your backend will also be ready, right? It's not difficult and it's not like undoable. Okay. So that is also like pretty much straightforward. Okay. So that is one thing, right? And the other thing is in terms of token efficiency that Siddhartha has asked around feature enhancement. So should we change the spec doc or should we directly add the queuing message? I think we should, like, generally my suggestion is to change the spec, right? Think about the spec, and that's where brainstorming is super important. And we will look at how do we brainstorm, how do we think about security issues, right? And so on. Okay. So all those things we'll talk about now, right? So we'll spend another 10-15 minutes talking about those things. So let me just do that. So let me just show. So this is the deployment ready. All the deployment steps are also given to you. So you can also deploy using say Vercel, right? Or AWS or Azure. If you have a domain, you can connect it. All these things you can handle it here itself. Okay. So we have not generated unit tests yet, but you can just say generate UATs, right? Or you can just write properly unit tests for this website. Give a documented test plan, right? Something like this, and you'll see a folder getting created about all the texts and so on, right? Um, Raj has asked around skills. I'll talk about it, Raj. Right. While it builds up, there's an interesting question in Q&A around like, can we create spec files for the existing project? Santosh has asked. So you can, right? Depends on how big the project is. For very, very complex projects, it becomes increasingly difficult, right? So that's where we go module by module. We obviously have some documentation, some wikis, right? So Claude tries to figure it out. From there, it tries to get a sense of the project. It tries to look at like recent PRs that are merged into Git into the repo, right? And so on. So based on that, it tries to figure out what is the project about and so on. But you can definitely create the spec based on the project itself, right? So these changes I'm doing directly because Claude couldn't figure it out, right? Or there were some errors. Ideally, all the changes should go into the spec, right? That is the aim. Like that should be the aim. But yeah, there are sometimes some limitations, right? Or something. Obviously, as you saw, like some button clicks not working and so on. You can give detailed descriptions that okay, when this button is clicked, you give this, or when say if people click sign in, invoke Google Auth, right? Or invoke say two-factor authentication and so on, right? So those kinds of things. Okay. So it is say creating the test plan. So it has created a detailed test plan as you can see here, right? So testing strategy, test scope, test levels, categories, unit test plan, integration test plan, and so on. Okay. So it's a detailed test plan has been created here, right? As to whether some button is working or not, whether some accessibility fixes are there needed or not, and so on, right? So all these things are in detail created. Right now it is to you to implement it. Like Claude is implementing it for you, but you can go through it and see that, oh, if something is missing or not, right? But at least the basic skeleton is done for you, right? So that is the main aim. Okay. So while it builds, again, you can see the test coverage and those things, those files are getting created. Now let me talk a bit about, say, skills, right? So skills are what? So you can use Claude, but it is not always necessary to just rely on your own prompts while you are working on stuff, right? Not necessary, meaning like you don't need to worry about, like, say, like how, for example, how Claude is interpreting your commands, right? Your commands might be very vague and Claude might not like understand it properly, right? So those problems can be there. So that is where, like, we want to do better, right? We want, or rather we want to give more precise commands, right? Or as a product manager, you would want to brainstorm more and so on, right? So that's where, like, online you will find a lot more like skills available for you. Okay, so there is a very good repo that you can find of skills that I generally use, right? So this is known as BMAD. Okay, so this is kind of like a repo of skills. Okay, this is a repo of skills that a person has built, right? And it's like you can just inherit it in your repo, right? You can clone it in any repo that you need. There are no security vulnerabilities. It does not get built along with the project. You add it to git ignore, right? It doesn't get built, it doesn't get checked in. Okay, but you will see here a lot of skills are there, right? So you have lot of these agents which are themselves skills, right? So you have the analyst skill. Okay, you analyst skill, what it will do is you can go, her name is Mary. It is the business analyst, right? It resolves agent block, uh, basically understands what it tries to do, and so on, right? So what are the skills available to it? Then you have the architect skill, whose name, he also has a fancy name, Winston. Okay, you have the dev skill. Okay, dev skill, Amelia. You have the agent PM skill, John, and you have the UX designer skill. Okay, Sally. So you can actually, and then you have other skills also. You have architecture skills. You have a skill to create epics, stories, ADOs, right? Uh, Somebody was asking about security. I think Tejashree was asking about security standards and so on, right? So you have skills for those. You have skills even for sprint planning, right? UX, product briefing, and then so on. Okay, so all these skills are there, and you can use this BMAD repo itself along with Claude Code. So when you implement it, right, in Claude Code, you can directly say something like this. You can say slash bmad. I don't have bmad in this repo, right? But if I had it, I can just say slash bmad, and then I can give my command. So it will see if bmad has that skill, and then Claude will execute that skill, right? So that is the aim. Okay, so that is what it is. So it has code review skills, right? A lot of those test skills, right? Tools, and so on. Okay, so BMAD I will suggest you to use, so you know that your code generated is relevant. I think Nageshwari had that question around how do you know that the coding standards are good and so on. So that is so, like, how do you ensure that minimal changes are needed to add code and so on? So if you use these architect skills, right, as a product manager, if you use the spec skill to brainstorm, right, and so on, so you will ensure that your PRD, your document are good, right? You are able to build basic things, build proper templates, right, brainstorm properly, and so on. And then you use basically Claude to develop your things, right? So that is how you move forward. Okay. So Sudhir has asked a question on different lines, but I'll just take it up because we are talking about it. So if you think about, say, a standard fast API application to .NET application, like how much time it takes. So it completely depends on the application, right? It only varies on the application complexity, Sudhir. And again, like a lot of things might be outdated, right, in one version versus the other. So like I think there is no definitive answer that I have in terms of like, okay, how much time it might take to convert from one language to another, right? So and so on. So I think Nishant has asked a question around how do we create skills from scratch. So it is just an MD file, right? So you can only tell that you are a master facilitator and coach, helping the user create, edit, or validate a high quality PRD scope to the level and rigor. So you give this, right? You give the conventions, right? On activation, what it needs to do, okay, and so on. So you can basically tell each of these things, right? You create a document workspace, update, validate. So you give a detailed prompt like this, right? So brain dump, stakes calibration, working mode, right? So you basically work and continuously first the user gives you a brain dump, right? Then you first use your research agents to figure it out. Then you go back saying that, oh, this is good, this is bad, kind of thing, right? You choose any one, like based on the user's behavior, you choose either the fast path or you choose the coaching path, right? PM thinking kind of thing, right? Brainstorming kind of thing. So you give all these things to be able to write the spec. And writing a skill is not straightforward, right? It's not a two-line thingy. It is a very long, big task to even build a skill, right? And that's why these open source things actually are very, very good. Okay, so you can try to use BMAD and you can see how much you can take a look at like some of the YouTube sessions also in on BMAD, or some of our past things where we use like BMAD in some sessions about Claude to talk about it. So you can take a look at it, right? Yeah. So that's it. So now we already did the tests part, right? We were writing the tests. So all our tests overview, test summary, everything gets created, right? As we were talking about it. You can see here our GitHub repo is also ready, right? You can see all these U written, right? These are uncommitted, right? So if once you say that, okay, add this to the GitHub repo and so on, it will just publish, okay? If you want to deploy also, you can easily deploy it, right? You can say that, okay, deploy to say, uh, like say, Vercel or deploy to AWS and kind of thing, right? And so on. Okay. Uh, so that is the thing. And yeah, I think yeah. So I think yeah, if the whole of Claude, the whole depth of Claude, I think Param Sivan has mentioned a very valid thing that okay, this is a lot of good front end prototyping, but for the back end, for engineering managers or for say architects, like, how do we get the real work done, right? How do we get the back end up and so on? So I think this 1 hour or this 1 hour 15 minutes is very difficult to cover that, right? Because like if you have to talk about back end, I have to talk about cloud, the DB, and so on, right? Then we have to discuss about scale, the architecture, and so on. So if you are planning to build something, right, for anyone, right, if you're planning to build something, I'll suggest you go and look at like say BMAND itself, or like say parallel available skills itself, and then use some of these skills to build something, right? So for like for example, say BMAD method has the architect skills as I showed, right? You have the architect skill, so that will brainstorm for you, right? That will help you build something and think of the backend as you build, right? It's not just the front end, right? And so on. So those skills actually make life simpler, and then your iterations will also be lesser. Okay, so that is what you should be doing, right? Yeah. In terms of the code, yeah, I can just check in the code into GitHub as I mentioned. So we'll now do that. Okay. So we'll just say create a uh, GitHub repo and push this code to Git, something like this, right? So it will just create a GitHub repo and then push this thing to Git. So it will just check if there is a Git config on my machine or not. If not, it will try to install, right? It is just checking. You can see here Git status and everything it is seeing, right? There is nothing yet. So it saw that, okay, these are the things that I need to commit, okay? So also note that like any changes you make, ideally your Claude MD should get updated, right? So generally Claude MD gets updated. If not, you can always specify that, okay, update my Claude MD. Initially itself, you can say that update my Claude MD, right? But you can see here the testing strategy and everything that we added later that got updated to our Claude MD, right? Similarly, if you have a spec file separately, right? So you can tell, right? So once you say spec gets updated, you can say that update my Claude MD file also accordingly, or it will automatically do it for you. Generally, automatically it works, right? But it need to ensure that you are talking about that it understands the spec and so on. Yeah, you can see here that Git repo connection is getting built. So that is the token efficiency for the one I suggested. The skills part is looking at, yeah. If you're thinking about, say, building a like a full stack app, right? The cost, if you think of it, I'll say like depends on how much idea you have about building it, right? If you try to build the spec out of free, right? No need to use the code for like Claude Code or any paid version to build the spec. You can iterate, brainstorm, build the spec separately, and then once you have the docx file, you can come back, put it in this folder, and then start building the code, right? So ideally, I'll say not more than 1 month's worth of tokens. Okay, that is, I think, how much, $17 or something like that should be your max spend for a particular application, right? Not more than that. So 1,500 rupees odd. Okay, should be your spend essentially. If you're building a full stack thingy, obviously, like you will then need the backend. You will need an Azure, whatever, a cloud subscription and so on. So those are separate things. But yeah, I'm just talking about the AI spend. So yeah, this Claude for folks who joined a bit late as it is running now. So I just took Claude from the online version. So this is not a enterprise version at all. This is the Claude Pro version that is available online, right? And this is a like I think $17 per month version. Okay, Claude Code is not available free, so that is the only thing. So I think there is a question in chat around like Claude also has some agents and so on. So yes, Claude Code has Claude Code, basically the VS Code integration part. Once you use Claude Code directly, you can directly use those skills. So you don't have to separately install them as part of as the agent will have it. Okay. So it is telling me to so it has given me a Git. It did not find a Git this thing. It has given me a detailed step of how to go to Git, right? So you go to Git, you enter these details, right? Repository and so on. Okay. And once you do that, you will be able to, it will push it for you kind of thing, right? Once you give these things, it will push it for you, right? I'll show you a Git repo where I have this code, okay? So that you can take this code. Let me just see if I have that code available. I'll share the public version also for this Wander Together code. Uh, to that. But I'll just show how the code checkings look like, right? So this is the Wander Together, the application, and you can see here, right? Parijat Roy and Claude Sonnet. This is the commit, okay, and so on, okay. So this is how the code commits look like, right? I can show you another version of the code also. I had it somewhere, but I don't remember where. But I'll share the link later. But yeah, so that is one other thing, right? So how the code looks like, and then once you have the code, you can just write that deploy as a Vercel app kind of thing, right? So you can say that here itself. So you can say that, okay, deploy this website as a Vercel app. So Vercel is a free deployment thingy, right? So for Vercel, you don't need any pay. You can deploy it directly. So once you deploy it, it looks something like this. I have it deployed, so I'm not deploying it again, right? It will, you don't have to, you don't need to install Vercel, okay? You don't need to install Vercel, it will do it for you, right? So this is an older version of Wonder Together that I had created all with AI, right? Here I had added Google sign-in kind of thing. Obviously it is broken because I don't have the API key and all for Google sign-in, right? But the Vercel app, I just wanted to show the deployment, right? And you can see here, right? It's a much detailed thingy that I had, right? This I think was a result of a 4 hour session where we tried to build like pages and so on individually. Okay, so this you will see is more interactive. It is mobile friendly also and such. Okay, so you can make these changes. You can build these types of say complex things on top of your AI app, right? It doesn't have to be done. Yeah. So Christian has asked like does it automatically work on backend? So you don't have to give specific instructions, but you can say that this say should scale to say uh, uh, 1 million concurrent users, or you should say that okay, this has to work with these resources in AWS or Azure kind of thing, right? And so on. Okay, so that's it. In terms of guardrails and security also you can mention properly, but if you use pre-made skills of security skills and all, it will generally work. Okay, so that is the thing. Guardrails and all you can also mention in the spec that okay, a user should not be allowed to say an IP address should not be allowed to hit more than 100 times in the rolling last 5 minutes, right? And so on. Those kinds of security guardrails also you can put to prevent DDoS attacks and so on. But generally those things then go as the config for your say API gateway, right? And such, right? So that's how you move forward with it, right? Um, yeah. So I think that is mostly it, right? So this is the app, and you can then go about publish to GitHub, look at the repo, right, and so on, and build. I also built few other things with completely with agents. This is something that I recently built to just do MCQs with people. So you can drop in questions, right? You can browse files, you can drop in questions. So I have some files here. I can just show you how it looks like. A fun thing that I often take time out in the weekends apart. So when I teach in IK, so we have say MCQs, right, that we discuss with students at Interview Kickstart. And I'm not advertising Interview Kickstart, but the MCQs are really good. So you see, it's a very bland document. I wanted to make it more user friendly, so I just gamified it out with AI. Okay, and you can see here now it is gamified and so on. Okay, so and such, right? So you can do a lot of things with AI, right? You can build a lot of things. I have other things also. If you like if you are into say statistics, right? If you like statistics, or if you are into say linear algebra, if you're a math guy, right? You can always look up some of the good things that are built with AI. Okay, you can take a look at this thing also, and there are like lot of foundational things here, lot of interesting things here and so on. You can just change things and then see how things look like, right? This is actually built by one of my teachers. Yeah, a super person to work with, but it's a very beautiful thing, right? And there are many others completely built with like AI, right? Minimal human intervention obviously, but a lot of AI work, right? Even if say like you need multiple iterations, your like things will fail and so on, right? But like say unit tests fail and so on, you can always use AI to improve them, to make things better, and go ahead with it, right? So yeah. Yeah, Sharavir has asked on other than Vercel, what options do you have? You have Azure and AWS, right? Obviously, those are the OG ones. Vercel I mentioned because that needs the minimal setup, right? So that is mostly it. Okay, cool. I think Niyati, if you are there, over to you. First of all, very sorry I couldn't switch on the video today,
No
but
worries. I'm
yeah, my
gonna
camera is not
make up
working.
for
But
that.
yeah, yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So thanks, Bajat. I know you might want to touch up on a few things after this or answer a few questions. But for people who joined in late, I had actually, during the introduction, while introducing Parijat and the topic, I had mentioned that we keep doing such master classes, but at Interview Kickstart, because we have been doing this for over 12 years in India and the US, what we believe is that learning is a continuous journey, right? It's not something that should be constrained to just this 1.5 hour, while this can be super helpful for certain topics that you want to do. But for a long-term impact on your career, what one should focus on is keep honing the skills that the recruiters are looking for. And for exactly that, I hope you can see my screen. Parijat, if you can quickly just confirm if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it is visible.
Awesome, thanks. You may feel that why is it important to talk about this, right? And let's go back to the poll that I took in the beginning of the session, which asked the first question: what is your aim for 2026? Almost 80% of you said that you want to upskill with agentic AI skills in your current tech stack. Okay, that's very important. And the second question was, what's blocking you from doing that, right? To that, about 62% of you said that I do not have a structured path. Now, that's exactly why I'm taking these next few minutes, and talking to you. Because if you're interested in having a long-term impact on your career, maybe the next few minutes are going to be useful. Okay. When the whole AI journey started a few years ago, people found themselves in any of these four boxes. They may feel that the AI as such ecosystem is moving too fast for me. They may feel there's too much to read and learn out there. I don't know where to start. I don't know what is the end of it, whether it is actually the right thing that I'm learning. Specifically, if you are interested in customized role-based upskilling, right? Third one now does not exist in, on August 25th, it is today. I don't think so. 2026, it doesn't exist. That they don't feel, nobody feels my job is way too unique and way too safe for to be impacted by AI. That does not happen anymore. Most of our learners are working professionals, okay? With 8 years experience, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They are engineering managers, leaders, right? Or software engineers with, say, 7 years or 8 years of experience. They don't want to down level. They have done so much over all of these years developing their tech stack. Just because they want to up level in AI, they don't want to start from scratch. And that's completely valid. So while the AI upleveling curve about a couple of years ago started through increasing your productivity using LLMs and copilots. Now it's all about what Parijat was showing us today. He took a example of a travel agent, but building such apps or building on existing ML models or new ML models using AI, that has what transformational changes have come through across all of the workplaces, right? And you'll agree that this has been the curve, how it's increasing, and it's kind of become table stakes to learn the right AI skills. And most of you, like you mentioned in the poll, want to do it basis your tech stack. Okay. So I have two programs right in front of you. You can see them. The first one is if you're unsure, right? And if you feel this is the right fit, the way Parijat was, you already have a sneak peek into our instructor quality. Uh, but this particular program is for people who are from 18 different tech domains, and I'll show you the tech domains. Some of them are written over here. So if you're a backend engineer, if you're a TPM, if you are a EM, a tech leader, an engineering manager, a product manager, an SRE DevOps person, your journey is going to be completely different. We are going to teach you AI skills the way it is customized for you, and prepare you for interviews properly as per your domain. Okay. So the transformative generative AI and agentic AI plus interview lab program is for that. Now there will be people who are uh, different, they have different levels of proficiency in coding, right? So we have a no code track, a low code track, and a pro code track, right? So apart from the domain customizations, you also get customization of the level of coding that you know. This that is about 3 months. The next 3 months is all about preparing for interviews. We give you 15 live mock interviews with instructors like Parijat who are actually hiring in their company either for your role or for different, or they know other colleagues who are hiring for roles that you're applying for. And they give you the right from, as they say, right from the horse's mouth. They let you know what is lacking, what you have as a strength, and they develop and hone your interview giving skills for the next 15 chances, 15 opportunities, right? We also cover a lot of other things in interview preparation, and I'll take you through that quickly. The other program that we have is a newly built one. We have already launched our first batch also for this. This is the Forward Deployed AI Engineering program. Now, you might have heard the FD role, or especially software engineers, data engineers, ML engineers, particularly people from pro code background or engineering background, they would have heard this because this is a role that is coming up in India and has come up really, really quickly. Because in the last 3 months itself, when we started tracking this role, there were only a couple of hundred odd openings. But at this point of time, as I speak right now, and you can go check on LinkedIn, for the core FD role plus adjacent roles, there are almost about 2000 plus openings, right? In the US, this has become a well settled role itself. What an FD is, that's a longer conversation. We are hosting a masterclass on Thursday. So if you're interested to know about this program more, you can ask the program advisor who's going to call you to direct you to that masterclass so that you know about the role and what we do in this particular program, right? This again is about 6 months program. Coming to interview preparation, like I said, we have 18 different customizations available. If you see a role on the screen, you should know you are going to have a customized upskilling roadmap that we are going to give you. So the structured path that you guys were looking for, this is what we were talking about, right? Customized to the level that is relevant for your role. In our interview lab, the 3 months that I was talking about, we are going to cover DSA and system design live. We are also going to cover modules on domains, your particular domain. Like I said, do 15 mock interviews with our Man Plus instructors and offer all of these career services, which is LinkedIn optimization, resume optimization, how to crack those offer negotiation rounds or salary now rounds, behavioral rounds, right? All of that will be taught because for us, up leveling as well as outcome orientation through interview preparation is equally important, right? All of our program our learners, once they successfully complete the program, they have an opportunity, depending on availability, have performance and fitment based referrals through our 200 plus hiring partner network, through our alumni network in India and the US, and our instructor network also, right? Sometimes they also refer you in their own companies, and they can be any of these companies and more, right? I couldn't fit all 200 in the slide. Coming to the duration, like I said, the transformative Gen AI Agentic AI plus interview lab is 3 plus 3 months, and even the forward deployed engineering is around 6 months, about 23 weeks. As far as the finances go, the pricing for transformative Gen AI and Agentic AI plus interview lab program starts at 1.5, goes till about 2.8, depending on which domain you're from. So we give domain specific pricing, and the forward deployed AI engineering program is about 2.75 lakhs. Now, all of our learners, like I said, are experienced working professionals. So obviously they have responsibility, personal and professional responsibilities, financial responsibilities. So we do on first come first basis have scholarships running, and we have EMI options which can make it very, very doable for you. So if you invest in this today, for the next 6 months, by the time you enter the hiring cycle of 2027, you're going to be absolutely ready to crack and take your career, pivot your career to where you want to take it, right? So talk to us, and if you feel there is value in what I have shared with you right now, I'm going to launch a poll, and please go ahead and let me know if we can call you and discuss about the program in detail. You can have a one-on-one consultation with our senior program advisors, and they will answer all of your questions on how are our programs relevant for you, or which program will suit you more. So go ahead, please. You can fill in the poll while I'll hand it over to Parijat again if he wants to take up some topic that is left or the questions that are there in the Q&A section.
Yeah, Niyati, I think I answered most of them. I think some common ones, I think all are answered majorly. I'm just looking at if anything specific, I think about the recording and notes, I think you will share the
Yeah.
needful. Yeah.
About the
And
recording,
yeah,
people can, the program advisor who's going to call you, you can talk to them about uh, your structured roadmap, as well as they can also help you with the recording.
yeah, yeah. And I think, yeah, in terms of the cost and all, right? So like, yeah, uh, always decide, like, so whenever you are using AI, right, the bottom line is obviously token spend and cost, which is an important parameter. So for that, what I'll say is, whatever easy tasks are there, right? Always try to choose something cheaper, right? Some of the smaller models, maybe some of the SLMs, or maybe some of the smaller models, Gemini models, GPT-5o, right? 4o mini, and so on, the mini models, which are much cheaper. And then if you're doing something complex, like say scaffolding the whole project, or you are trying to say solve a very specific bug, or solve a very, say, a threading issue which is happening, say on a particular device, or some scale issue that you are facing in the back end, right? So in those cases, you try to use the more expensive ones, say Opus or Sonnet, and so on. Okay. So that way you can minimize cost as much as possible. I think cost, obviously, AI has as a necessary cost involved. And that is one thing that I wanted to call out. I think other than that, I think I've answered all the things, Niyati. So I think,
Yeah, I
yeah,
can see
that's
that
it.
you have answered most
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
So I'm just going to keep the poll live for another couple of minutes. People who are here, they can go ahead. Or if you have any questions that you feel were not answered, you can again just put it on the Q&A box in the section, and we'll take up like last couple of them if we think that there are incremental questions. Parijat, one question Shri Prasanna has just asked. Can you please throw some light on where does Claude tend to struggle and what should we take care of at our end?
Yeah, I think Claude struggles mainly when you have a very ambiguous statement, like say you say that refactor this service kind of a thing, right? So, or you say some like say you it sees the code but does not automatically know why a particular business rule exists, right? So you should clearly tell those things. Or it's if it's a long running task, right? Because as the task grows, the context becomes more expensive, probability of going down the wrong path increases, and so on. So those kinds of problems happen, right? And obviously, like hallucinated assumptions, so it might assume that an API exists, infer a database schema incorrectly, right? So it is better you provide the proper schema, and so on. Okay. So all those things, guardrails, your README should have those, right? So good agent loop should be there. So you plan, implement, test, lint, review, fix kind of thing. And you keep humans in the loop for high level things like say refactoring or running tests or debugging, and so on. So all those things you should handle it with human in the loop thing. So I think that is
Awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I think, Parijat, there are no more questions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Prasanna. So thanks, Parijat, for answering Prasanna's question. And I think we can call it a night. We have answered most of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining in on a weekday evening, everyone. Thank you,
Yes.
Niyati, for hosting it so nicely. And yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Parijat. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. We look forward to your conversation with our program advisors. Even if it's something you want to check with us, if you're on the right path, we are happy to help, happy to talk to you, happy to go through your profile and give you a personalized consultation. Okay. Vinay is asking, can you share the FD masterclass? Yes, Vinay, I can share the link with you, and that should take you through the FD masterclass. Just give me a moment. FD masterclass. Yeah. Anybody who's interested in joining the FD masterclass, which is happening day after tomorrow, please feel free to just register over here. you will get a joining link just like you did for this particular masterclass. So in that particular class, we are going to cover what is an FDE role, what is the opportunity in India, what kind of companies in India are hiring for it. When we say FDE or a forward deployed engineer, what are the exact responsibilities of that person? Uh, and for different roles, I know you guys come from different domains, for example, a software engineer or a solutions architect or even an EM. How can you transition into the forward deployed engineering, the whole ecosystem? So we're going to discuss that. It's pretty interesting. We are seeing a lot of engineers take up this opportunity because it's a role that is hugely in demand and only growing. We have companies like Salesforce. At home we have Razorpay, Misho, all of these different names, Google, of course, Anthropic, all of these companies, all of the cloud solutions, at least hiring for FD, and even GCCs, product companies hiring for them. So if you're interested to know more about the role as well as the program that we are offering, please go ahead and register. Cool. I'm gonna end this session. Thanks a lot for staying back and helping with your uh, thanks, Vinay. Yes, and helping with your poll responses. Really appreciated. Have a great night.